Hi, my name is Erica Pierce. I own Erica Pierce Photography, and more importantly, my baby, Wild Clementine, which is my boudoir brand, where I get to empower women and really let my mind run free and create some beautiful things that I adore. So, this is me explaining to you how to refine and hone and really take a passion that you have for photography and bring it to the next level and explain how to create a vision and edit it down in a way that people can understand it and grasp it and it make a little bit more sense. So that is what I'm here to share with you today, and a little bit about myself. Pardon while I click through some slides. I'm not very, I'm not very good at seeming like I'm not clumsy, because I am in fact very clumsy. But I am a mama to five beautiful babies. I live in the New Orleans area on the North Shore. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Louisiana area, it's a boot basically. And there is New Orleans at the tippy bottom of the boot. And I'm right above New Orleans. There's a big giant lake, and that is where I live. So I serve the New Orleans area and the suburbs of New Orleans. And that is where I live. I love it very much. It is an eclectic group of people here. I fit in beautifully. I am currently engaged to my amazing partner that I love so much. We get married next year, and I cannot wait for that. And here we go. Dang it, I'm not going to lie. I'm not very good at this sometimes, so pardon me if I stumble over my words. I have been in the business for 7.5 years as an actual business owner. I started about 8 years ago taking photographs. It has been a passion of mine, and finding a way to balance my mission, which is empowering women, with finding a way to be creative and not just documenting, because I did start in birth photography. So finding a way, another outlet where I could explore and kind of play into that whimsical area that I love so much was a mission of mine, which is how I created my own brand of boudoir. It is a little unconventional. It's not traditional. Whereas some might shoot lingerie, I'm more into ball gowns. So it's a little different, but I love it very, very much. My favorite quote, as you'll see, is "The world needs your kind of beautiful." I had a friend when I started my business that I was really struggling, because as you know, there's a sea of photographers and a sea of talent. And how do you fit in? Where do you find your place? I really struggled with that concept. And she told me that one day: the world needs your kind of beautiful. And I stand behind that big time. There is enough room for everyone to have their own unique creative voice, which is what I'm hoping to help you with today. So this is a little bit about what we're going to talk about right now. I'm not going to read through it, because I know that you can process that on your own time and hopefully watch this a few times, and that I give you some insight into how all of this works. But you'll see those capitalized letters. You have to find your why. You have to really come into your own and your creativity and finding that creative outlet. You have to get people excited about it. You have to educate your audience, and then making that vision come to life is a completely different animal that we'll get to in just a minute. And then lastly, let it soar. That's kind of where we're going with all of this. It's not incredibly complicated, but I do think it's some abstract thinking that maybe is overlooked a good bit, which is why I have a passion for this type of topic. So that is what we're going to get into today, right now, as it turns out. So finding your why. This is different for everyone, and it's really, really important in, I think, anything you do, whether it be your own personal fitness journey or starting a new hobby. You really have to find your why as to how and what your purpose is in doing it. Photography, I feel like it's pretty standard across the board. We can give that basic answer of, I want to preserve memories, but it has to be more than that. It wasn't just for me to make a living. If I wanted to make a living, I probably wouldn't create art for a living, because it's so subjective. And as you know, your feelings can get caught up in it. And that wouldn't be necessarily where I would go if this was just a business move for me. And it wasn't. My why is because I have to create. I have to make something, and I have to believe in it. My why is to definitely provide for my family, but I'll be honest, if I'm not making something, and I mean fully making something on my own that I have created, that I have conceived of, whether I'm piggybacking off some other smaller idea, I have to be creating something. If not, my mental health suffers. I get really sad and dark. I am an Enneagram 4. So I think it makes a lot of sense that I'm in the arts, but my why is that I have to create. It feeds my soul, and I just have to keep going forward. So whether it's a dry season in my business and things are moving kind of at a snail's pace, think COVID times when everything kind of just stopped, I still created, because if I don't, I know me and I know how I am, and I have to keep creating. So for me, it really is a stability thing, and it keeps me grounded. And that is why I do what I do. That is why documenting birth, so I love tremendously, didn't feed it completely, because I needed to create. Documenting is one thing, creating is a different thing. So I need to create. Why do you want to have a passion for your work? Point blank, it shows. If you don't love what you're shooting, if you're shooting families and that doesn't make your heart sing because it's overwhelming and it's complicated and it's too much, then maybe that's not the best fit for you. If it's newborns and those squishy little newborns getting all wrapped up and dolled up with studio lighting and warm, squishy, fuzzy newborn hazy memories for moms and dads, if that's something that you're passionate about, it will show. So to me, as an artist, it's my responsibility to find something that shows that I love it. Because if it doesn't, it's going to show right in your face. A good example would be, I used to get asked all the times to shoot weddings, and I kind of eye roll in like my head, like, come on, because that just wasn't where my heart was at the time. And I knew, like, from the bottom of my heart, it was going to show that that wasn't my happy place. So you really have to find your happy place, what you want to have your passion go. And that doesn't mean you can't have multiple genres that you shoot. But I really believe strongly in the fact that if you don't love it, it will show. I do recommend a vision board of some sorts. I have several Pinterest boards even that I kind of rotate and keep fresh. Not for anything in particular. I just want to have, if something strikes my fancy, I want to be able to get it out of my head and onto something that I can see. I find it stimulating to the ideas that I'm wanting to create. So whether it be a vision board or some time alone to kind of process. Another thing that I personally do is I have to talk it out. So I have friends, two very close colleagues that I can bounce ideas around, and it kind of gets my creativity going. So whatever that is for you, you have to find a way to get it to a concrete point. So I do recommend a vision board of some sort, whether it be Pinterest or even taping things to your mirror in the morning. Everyone's different. Just find a way to kind of collect those thoughts. Otherwise, it can get really scattered. So I definitely recommend finding a way to hone that into a place where you can physically see it, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing ourselves. We're taking an idea and making it visible to other people, and we want it to make sense. So getting organized and keeping that focus is a really good starting point to get started in the creativity and finding that passion. So when you see it, you're going to want to recreate it. And the trick of it is not recreating what you see, recreating something that's yours and yours alone. So this is where I might get a little bit more. This is, like, to me, some abstract thinking. Tapping into your creativity. And I have met with so many other photographers that are so different than me. And this is easy for me, but a lot of people it isn't. Taking photographs and executing the technical skill of a camera is one thing. And some people get that lickety split, whereas other people struggle with conceiving and making a conception of a concept of art. I know I'm saying a lot of words, but getting that fleshed out in a way that makes sense. I know that that's a big struggle for creatives as a whole. Sometimes it can lead to writer's block type situation where you just can't think of anything because you're so overwhelmed and nothing makes sense. And to me, tapping into your creativity is pretty simple. But That being said, you're not me. And these are things that I think of. So people will be like, how did you think of that? Where did that come from? And sometimes it's a flash of color that I thought of, or a color palette. This is where that vision board can come into play. I have even on my phone, I just have albums full of colors. I go on the Pantone website sometimes and just download colors that are speaking to me at the moment. Or I find paintings, beautiful, beautiful classic master work of paintings that I just love and cherish. And something about them will sing to me, and I grab it and I look at it and I'm like, okay, how can I take this color and make it into something that makes me feel the way this color looks to me when I look at it? Much like bubblegum pink makes me kind of think of bubblegum and bubbles and pastel dreams of my 80s childhood. And that's an easy way for me to go straight in and start conceiving of a concept. I'm going to go into it later in some of my work at the end, can kind of show you what I mean by that. But that is something to think about, those splashes of color, or the way the light hits the trees. That's actually giving me chills just thinking about it. The way the afternoon sunlight or the fall sunlight hits the leaves. I can look at that and be like, okay, that's how I want these women to see themselves when it's all said and done. I want to capture that light, the way it hits the earth naturally, and get it to really just radiate onto these women. And it can be as simple as that. So tapping into that creativity and finding something that seems abstract, but then it's like a game. You can make it yours. That's kind of where we're going here. Now, trends. I'm going to touch on this, and I know that this might not be what you want to hear, and I'm all for a good trend. I do them myself. In fact, one of those bubblegum dreams was based off a concept at the time, just for the fact that I'm not following suit. I'm going to raise it up a bar. And there's nothing wrong with trends. I love trends, but I want to be me, and unapologetically, I want to be me, and I want to be somebody that nobody else is. So trends are great, but I really think it's important, and there's an art to editing down how much trend you show. Because you want to be the trendsetter, not the trend follower. So just be really careful about that. It comes down to that the world needs your kind of beautiful. Sure, do a trend. It's going to make money. I think that's awesome. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about being unique and being uniquely yourself. So just be a little sensitive about that. Trends come and go, but classic, authentic work is far more timeless. So just something to consider. So we've got our idea. What comes next? This can be tricky, especially if you're just starting into a creative realm. Whereas like where I came from, birth photography, which is just documenting a birth. Going from there to bubbles and boats and handcrafted garments that I've made myself is light years away. So how did I get from I am a birth photographer to I'm shooting whatever the heck I want? You have to get people excited. A lot of what you do as a photographer is educating people. Part of that is on your worth and your business and explaining, not directly, but like cost of doing business and those sorts of things. You're constantly educating your audience. This is the same thing. You need them to get excited about what you're offering. It's different. You want people to start buzzing about the different that you have, which is where that trend kind of thing comes into play. If people have seen it 20 times over, they're probably going to be less excited about it versus a completely unique concept. So how do you do that? Well, you share. And I don't mean just share on your business page or Instagram stories and those sorts of things. Now that does help. It's actually pretty priceless. But even on your personal page, there are ways to trickle that in so that you're eating and breathing it without being so overwhelming to people. So it's not often that I share on a personal page or feed, but when I do, I notice who notices. And slowly but surely, those people start popping up in other places. And the more they notice, the more they're sharing. So it's really just a progressive, you get excited, they get excited. and then they get to see the finished product. So what happens when that is done, even if you're slammed, be working towards the next one. So move on, keep going, and do what you got to do. Now, I'm not talking busy season when you're covered in people and clients. That's different. It's really hard to work on a concept and flesh out something unique during that time. But let's say it's right after Christmas. Most people don't get a lot of business at that time. It's right before Easter and spring minis and all those sorts of things. That's your time to shine. And if you're slow, work. It doesn't matter if they don't have to know you're slow. You work. And the more you work, the more people get excited. And the more excited they get, the more they want to come to you. So it's a cycle, and it's hard, and it can seem daunting. But my biggest piece of advice I've given photographers, when you feel like you don't want to shoot, do it anyway. So executing these visions, how do we get there? Details matter. From nail polish to shoes or no shoes, those little things matter. Editing those down matter as well. You want a refined finished product when it's all said and done. You need to make sure it tells a story. It has to make sense. I see people where they will sometimes do things that are a little bit unnatural. Example would be my clients when they come to see me, and I have them looking up to get a beautiful side profile and a nice long neck. They want to do this. No one's looking at the ceiling with their eyes open. And I always tell them it has to make sense what you're doing. So the point of that would be, this is a breath of a moment, and you need to make sure that that story, and it doesn't have to be this layered, complicated story, but whatever that story is in a breath of a moment, you got to get it just in that moment. Another thing I just want to touch on is, don't feel intimidated or timid with someone on set. If they're running the show, then it's going to compromise your finished product. So you have to make sure that you, and I don't mean be a dictator, but you do have to make sure that your final product makes sense for what you wanted it to be. And if you have too many cooks in the kitchen, sometimes that can get a little weird. So make sure that you know what your agenda is. If you're doing something risky or you're uncomfortable with, get someone that you're used to shooting with and knows your rhythm, because that does matter. So how to make it take flight. When you're shooting what you're passionate about, people see it, and it does get exciting. And I've seen it change photographers' businesses over and over and over again. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fall. Everyone does it. You pick yourself up and you keep going. They don't have to know what's behind the scenes. They see what you show them. So just keep going. Even if it was a flop, you've got another one in the works. Like I said, always stay busy. As far as getting people excited, the more you show, the more you pick up. I mean, we've seen followers grow. I've seen photographers that keep posting, keep sharing, and their followers grow. And that's the ultimate goal here, is share, 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 get that buzz, and it continues to take flight. So as far as like steps to get there, always trust your gut. If it seemed like a good idea and you feel passionate about it, go for it, even if it flops. Something I see people do pretty often, they'll promise something or they talk about something and they never get to it. Don't do that. Follow through. People like to see consistency. They like to see the finished product. Even if it's a flop by your standards, it's resonating out there with someone. So follow through. Don't let these people, the followers that you have, don't let these people see you not finish what you started. Finish what you started, and stay at it. Stay at it. Like I said, things are going to get slow. No one has to know that. It's not really about that. It's finding your passion and putting it out there. So always go to the next thing. And side note, this is my bubble session that I mentioned, and all these things, these were kind of my brainchild that I wanted to do. I have a lot of work of these. So these are just examples. Now, how do you know that what you're doing is working? Word of mouth. You get more inquiries, you know people are talking. That's what you want. The more you make, the more your creativity expands and grows. So the more concepts you have, that's how you know your passion's in the right place. Bookings. You want documented, like fine, like you want to see it, bookings will come. They might not all book that inquire, but bookings will come. And when that happens, you have more income. So these are basically practical ways that you can tell that your vision and your passion is taking off, and it comes from your work. All I know is you've got this. It takes some effort and you have to kind of shift the way you think. But as long as you're shooting what you love, that passion's going to show and it's going to radiate into others. It's giving me chills again and kind of making me weepy. But you've got this, guys. The world does need your kind of beautiful. Go out there and make it. They're going to love it. I promise.